The morning sun barely touched the horizon when Officer Marcus Chen arrived at the police station. His boots echoed through the empty hallway as he made his way to the K-9 unit. At 53 years old, Marcus had seen more than his fair share of changes in the department. But nothing prepared him for what was waiting in the kennel that morning. Rex sat in the corner of his enclosure, his graying muzzle resting on his paws. The German Shepherd's once vibrant brown eyes still held intelligence, but the years had clearly taken their toll. At 11 years old, Rex was considered ancient in police dog years. Most K-9 officers retired at 8 or 9, spending their golden years chasing tennis balls in suburban backyards. But Rex was different. He had refused to slow down. Marcus had fought tooth and nail to keep him on active duty. The younger officers didn't understand. They walked past Rex's kennel every day, their eyes filled with pity or worse, dismissal. They had their own partners now, young and energetic dogs with glossy coats and boundless energy. Dogs like Titan, a massive 3-year-old Belgian Malinois who could scale a 6-foot wall without breaking stride. Or Luna, a lightning-fast Dutch Shepherd whose nose could detect substances from 50 yards away. These were the new generation, the future of the K-9 unit. Marcus opened Rex's kennel door. The old dog rose slowly, his hind legs stiff from arthritis. But his tail wagged with the same enthusiasm it had on their first day together 9 years ago. Marcus knelt down, running his hand over Rex's scarred head, feeling the ridge where a suspect's knife had once connected. That scar was just one of many stories written on Rex's body. Detective Sarah Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, her face tight with concern. She was the department's lead investigator, respected by everyone for her sharp mind and no-nonsense approach. But even she looked worried this morning. "We've got a situation," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. 3 hikers went missing in the Cascade Range yesterday afternoon. Search and rescue found their campsite abandoned. No signs of struggle, but all their gear was left behind. It's like they just vanished. Marcus stood up, his knees cracking in protest. Weather conditions. Temperature dropped to 28 degrees last night. There's a storm system moving in. We've got maybe 6 hours before conditions become impossible. Sarah paused, glancing at Rex. I'm sending out all available K-9 units. We need every nose we can get. The briefing room filled quickly. 6 K-9 teams assembled, their dogs sitting obediently at their handlers' feet. Marcus noticed the looks exchanged when he entered with Rex. Officer Jake Morrison, Titan's handler, barely concealed his smirk. At 26, Jake represented everything the department valued now: young, fit, eager, and paired with an equally impressive animal. "With all due respect," Jake said, his tone suggesting none, "shouldn't we leave the veteran at home for this one? The terrain is rough, and we need dogs that can cover ground quickly." Captain Williams, a stern woman in her 40s who had worked with Marcus for over a decade, fixed Jake with a hard stare. "Rex has more successful searches under his collar than you have years on this force. He goes." But Marcus saw the doubt in her eyes too. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Rex was old. His best days were behind him. This search required speed and stamina, 2 things the aging shepherd no longer possessed in abundance. The teams loaded into trucks, heading toward the mountain range where the hikers had disappeared. The drive took 90 minutes, and with each passing mile, the terrain grew more forbidding. Dense forests gave way to rocky slopes and treacherous ravines. This was unforgiving country. It's the kind of place where people got lost and sometimes were never found. At the staging area, the teams gathered around a map. The missing hikers were college students: Emma Patterson, 21, studying environmental science; David Knox, 22, a biology major; and Sophie Chen, 19, a freshman experiencing her first real camping trip. Their worried families had provided photos and clothing items for the dogs to scent. Sarah divided the search grid into sectors. Each K-9 team would take a different area, working in a coordinated pattern to cover maximum ground. Rex would take the northwestern sector, an area of moderate difficulty with rolling hills and scattered pine groves. Jake and Titan drew the eastern sector, the most challenging terrain with steep cliffs and narrow trails. "Real dogs for real work," Jake muttered, loud enough for Marcus to hear. Marcus said nothing. He had learned long ago that actions spoke louder than words. He clipped the tracking lead to Rex's harness and presented the scent articles. The old dog's entire demeanor changed. His ears perked forward, his body tensed with purpose. This was what he lived for. The teams dispersed, each heading into their assigned sectors. Marcus watched the younger dogs bound ahead, their handlers practically jogging to keep up. Rex moved at a steadier pace, his nose working methodically across the ground. To an untrained eye, he might have looked slow, but Marcus recognized efficiency when he saw it. Rex wasn't wasting energy on false leads or exciting distractions. He was working. 2 hours into the search, the radio crackled with updates. Luna had found a torn piece of fabric near a stream, but the trail went cold after that. Titan had alerted on an area near a cliff face, but it turned out to be old camping debris from another group. One by one, the teams reported limited progress or dead ends. Marcus and Rex worked deeper into their sector. The old dog's breathing grew heavier, but he never stopped working. His nose swept back and forth across the forest floor, processing thousands of scent molecules with every breath. Marcus trusted that nose implicitly. In 9 years, Rex had never led him wrong. The temperature continued to drop. Marcus could see his breath now, and dark clouds gathered overhead. The storm was coming earlier than predicted. Sarah's voice came over the radio, tense and urgent. All teams, we're looking at 45 minutes before we have to pull back. The Weather Service just upgraded the storm warning. If we don't find them soon, we'll have to suspend until morning. But morning might be too late. At these temperatures, with the hikers inadequately dressed and possibly injured, they might not survive the night. Marcus felt the weight of that knowledge settling on his shoulders. 3 young people, their whole lives ahead of them, counting on strangers with badges and dogs to bring them home. Rex suddenly stopped, his head snapping to the left. His body went rigid, and his tail stood straight out. Marcus had seen this posture 100 times before. Rex had something. The old dog pulled toward a dense thicket, moving with renewed energy that seemed to come from nowhere. Marcus followed, pushing through branches and undergrowth, trusting his partner completely. The radio chatter continued in his ear. Other teams reporting their positions, their frustrations, but Marcus tuned it out, focusing entirely on the dog ahead of him. Rex was moving faster now, despite the difficult terrain. Whatever he was tracking, it was fresh and strong. Then Rex stopped again, this time at the edge of a steep embankment. He looked back at Marcus, his dark eyes intense and focused. Down below, barely visible through the vegetation, Marcus saw something that made his heart race. A flash of blue fabric, the same color as the jacket Emma Patterson had been wearing in her photo. The morning sun barely touched the horizon when Officer Marcus Chen arrived at the police station. His boots echoed through the empty hallway as he made his way to the K-9 unit. At 53 years old, Marcus had seen more than his fair share of changes in the department. But nothing prepared him for what was waiting in the kennel that morning. Rex sat in the corner of his enclosure, his graying muzzle resting on his paws. The German Shepherd's once vibrant brown eyes still held intelligence, but the years had clearly taken their toll. At 11 years old, Rex was considered ancient in police dog years. Most K-9 officers retired at 8 or 9, spending their golden years chasing tennis balls in suburban backyards. But Rex was different. He had refused to slow down. Marcus had fought tooth and nail to keep him on active duty. The younger officers didn't understand. They walked past Rex's kennel every day, their eyes filled with pity or worse dismissal. They had their own partners now, young and energetic dogs with glossy coats and boundless energy. Dogs like Titan, a massive 3-year-old Belgian Malinois who could scale a 6-foot wall without breaking stride. Or Luna, a lightning-fast Dutch Shepherd whose nose could detect substances from 50 yards away. These were the new generation, the future of the K-9 unit. Marcus opened Rex's kennel door. The old dog rose slowly, his hind legs stiff from arthritis. But his tail wagged with the same enthusiasm it had on their first day together 9 years ago. Marcus knelt down, running his hand over Rex's scarred head, feeling the ridge where a suspect's knife had once connected. That scar was just one of many stories written on Rex's body. Detective Sarah Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, her face tight with concern. She was the department's lead investigator, respected by everyone for her sharp mind and no-nonsense approach. But even she looked worried this morning. "We've got a situation," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. "3 hikers went missing in the Cascade Range yesterday afternoon. Search and rescue found their campsite abandoned. No signs of struggle, but all their gear was left behind. It's like they just vanished." Marcus stood up, his knees cracking in protest. Weather conditions. Temperature dropped to 28 degrees last night. There's a storm system moving in. We've got maybe 6 hours before conditions become impossible. Sarah paused, glancing at Rex. "I'm sending out all available K9 units. We need every nose we can get." The briefing room filled quickly. 6 K9 teams assembled, their dogs sitting obediently at their handlers' feet. Marcus noticed the looks exchanged when he entered with Rex. Officer Jake Morrison, Titan's handler, barely concealed his smirk. At 26, Jake represented everything the department valued now: young, fit, eager, and paired with an equally impressive animal. "With all due respect," Jake said, his tone suggesting none, "shouldn't we leave the veteran at home for this one? The terrain is rough, and we need dogs that can cover ground quickly." Captain Williams, a stern woman in her 40s who had worked with Marcus for over a decade, fixed Jake with a hard stare. "Rex has more successful searches under his collar than you have years on this force. He goes." But Marcus saw the doubt in her eyes too. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Rex was old. His best days were behind him. This search required speed and stamina. 2 things the aging shepherd no longer possessed in abundance. The teams loaded into trucks, heading toward the mountain range where the hikers had disappeared. The drive took 90 minutes, and with each passing mile, the terrain grew more forbidding. Dense forests gave way to rocky slopes and treacherous ravines. This was unforgiving country. It's the kind of place where people got lost and sometimes were never found. At the staging area, the teams gathered around a map. The missing hikers were college students: Emma Patterson, 21, studying environmental science; David Knox, 22, a biology major; and Sophie Chen, 19, a freshman experiencing her first real camping trip. Their worried families had provided photos and clothing items for the dogs to scent. Sarah divided the search grid into sectors. Each K9 team would take a different area, working in a coordinated pattern to cover maximum ground. Rex would take the northwestern sector, an area of moderate difficulty with rolling hills and scattered pine groves. Jake and Titan drew the eastern sector, the most challenging terrain with steep cliffs and narrow trails. "Real dogs for real work," Jake muttered, loud enough for Marcus to hear. Marcus said nothing. He had learned long ago that actions spoke louder than words. He clipped the tracking lead to Rex's harness and presented the scent articles. The old dog's entire demeanor changed. His ears perked forward, his body tensed with purpose. This was what he lived for. The teams dispersed, each heading into their assigned sectors. Marcus watched the younger dogs bound ahead, their handlers practically jogging to keep up. Rex moved at a steadier pace, his nose working methodically across the ground. To an untrained eye, he might have looked slow, but Marcus recognized efficiency when he saw it. Rex wasn't wasting energy on false leads or exciting distractions. He was working. 2 hours into the search, the radio crackled with updates. Luna had found a torn piece of fabric near a stream, but the trail went cold after that. Titan had alerted on an area near a cliff face, but it turned out to be old camping debris from another group. One by one, the teams reported limited progress or dead ends. Marcus and Rex worked deeper into their sector. The old dog's breathing grew heavier, but he never stopped working. His nose swept back and forth across the forest floor, processing thousands of scent molecules with every breath. Marcus trusted that nose implicitly. In 9 years, Rex had never led him wrong. The temperature continued to drop. Marcus could see his breath now, and dark clouds gathered overhead. The storm was coming earlier than predicted. Sarah's voice came over the radio, tense and urgent. "All teams, we're looking at 45 minutes before we have to pull back. The Weather Service just upgraded the storm warning. If we don't find them soon, we'll have to suspend until morning. But morning might be too late. At these temperatures, With the hikers inadequately dressed and possibly injured, they might not survive the night. Marcus felt the weight of that knowledge settling on his shoulders. 3 young people, their whole lives ahead of them, counting on strangers with badges and dogs to bring them home. Rex suddenly stopped, his head snapping to the left. His body went rigid, and his tail stood straight out. Marcus had seen this posture 100 times before. Rex had something. The old dog pulled toward a dense thicket, moving with renewed energy that seemed to come from nowhere. Marcus followed, pushing through branches and undergrowth, trusting his partner completely. The radio chatter continued in his ear. Other teams reporting their positions, their frustrations, but Marcus tuned it out, focusing entirely on the dog ahead of him. Rex was moving faster now, despite the difficult terrain. Whatever he was tracking, it was fresh and strong. Then Rex stopped again, this time at the edge of a steep embankment. He looked back at Marcus, his dark eyes intense and focused. Down below, barely visible through the vegetation, Marcus saw something that made his heart race. A flash of blue fabric, the same color as the jacket Emma Patterson had been wearing in her photo. The storm hit with full force 15 minutes later. Freezing rain pounded against the roof of the hunting blind, finding every crack and gap in the weathered structure. Marcus positioned himself and the 2 hikers as far from the leaks as possible, while Rex remained alert by the entrance. His ears tracking every sound from the forest outside, David and Sophie had stopped shivering as violently. The thermal blankets and Rex's body heat bringing their core temperatures back toward normal. But Marcus knew they weren't out of danger yet. Both showed signs of moderate hypothermia, and Sophie's lips still held a bluish tint that worried him. "Tell me what happened," Marcus said, partly to keep them talking and conscious, partly to piece together the incident for his report. "Start from when you left your campsite." David took a shaky breath. "We went for a day hike yesterday morning. Just wanted to explore the area, you know? We had a map, but Sophie thought she saw a trail that wasn't marked. She's studying biology, and she wanted to document some of the plant species in the area." Sophie's voice was barely a whisper. "It's my fault. I insisted we take that path. I was so sure it would loop back around to our camp." It's not your fault," David said firmly, tightening his arm around her shoulders. "We all agreed to go. But the trail just sort of disappeared after a while. We realized we were lost around midday. We tried to backtrack, but everything looked the same. Every tree, every rock formation. We walked in circles for hours. Emma started having trouble," Sophie continued, her voice breaking. "She twisted her ankle on some loose rocks. We were trying to help her down this slope when she lost her footing completely. She just slid down the embankment and hit those boulders. The sound was awful. We screamed her name, but she didn't respond." Marcus listened carefully, making mental notes. "You tried to reach her?" David nodded. "We tried climbing down, but the rocks were too loose. Every time we tried, more stones would fall. We were terrified we'd cause a bigger slide and hurt Emma worse. Or hurt ourselves and then none of us would make it out. It was getting dark, and we were lost and panicking. We decided to find help," Sophie said. "We thought if we kept moving, we'd eventually find the trail or see lights from other campers. But it just got darker and colder. We couldn't see anything. That's when we found this blind. We crawled inside and tried to stay warm. We thought we were going to die out here." The radio crackled to life. "Unit 7, this is the medical team. We've reached Emma Patterson's location. She's stable. Fractured left tibia and possible concussion, but her vitals are good. We're preparing her for extraction now. ETA to your position is approximately 25 minutes. Weather is making things difficult." Marcus acknowledged the message, then turned to David and Sophie. "Emma's going to be okay. They're bringing her out now." Sophie burst into tears, this time from relief rather than fear. David's eyes glistened, and he ducked his head, struggling to maintain composure. Rex lifted his head and nuzzled Sophie's hand, offering comfort in the only way he knew how. Outside, the storm continued its assault on the mountain. The temperature had dropped below freezing, and Marcus could see ice beginning to form on the branches visible through the gaps in the blind's walls. If they had still been searching, exposed to these conditions, The outcome might have been very different. Marcus's radio came alive again, but this time it was a different voice. Jake Morrison, Titan's handler, and he didn't sound good. "This is Unit 4. We've got a situation. Titan went after a deer, and I lost sight of him in the storm. He's not responding to recall. I'm about half a mile north of the staging area, but visibility is near zero." Marcus and Sarah both responded simultaneously, their voices overlapping. Sarah won out. "Unit 4, return to staging area immediately. Do not continue searching for Titan in these conditions. We'll organize a search when the storm passes." Negative. Jake's voice was tight with stress and embarrassment. "I'm not leaving my dog out here. He's my responsibility." "Officer Morrison, that's an order. Return to base now." Sarah's tone left no room for argument. There was a long pause, filled only with the howl of wind and the crackle of static. Finally, Jake responded, "Copy that." Returning to staging area, Marcus felt a mixture of sympathy and frustration. Losing control of your canine partner was every handler's nightmare. But Jake's decision to let Titan work off-leash in unfamiliar terrain during an active search had been reckless. Young handlers often overestimated their dog's discipline, especially with high-drive animals like Belgian Malinois. David had been listening to the exchange. "That doesn't sound good. Is his dog going to be okay?" "Titan's young and strong," Marcus said, though he shared David's concern. "He'll probably find shelter and wait out the storm. Dogs have good instincts for that kind of thing." But even as he spoke the words, Marcus knew the reality was more complicated. The mountains were full of dangers for a dog alone: cliffs, wild animals, freezing streams, and Titan, for all his impressive physical abilities, lacked the experience to navigate such hazards effectively. Rex's ears suddenly perked forward, and he rose to his feet. The old dog stared intently at the entrance to the blind, a low rumble building in his chest. Not aggressive, but alert. Something was out there. Marcus tensed, his hand moving instinctively to the service weapon at his hip. "Easy, Rex. What do you hear, boy?" The shepherd's nose worked the air, processing scents carried on the storm wind. Then, from somewhere in the darkness outside, came a sound. A bark, high-pitched and frightened. Then another, closer this time. "That's a dog," Sophie said, her eyes widening. Marcus moved to the entrance, peering out into the storm. The freezing rain had turned to sleet, and visibility was less than 20 feet. But there, emerging from the tree line, like a ghost, was Titan. The big Malinois was covered in mud, his left front leg held at an awkward angle. He limped toward the blind, his confident swagger replaced by obvious pain and fear. When Titan saw Rex standing in the entrance, the young dog hesitated. In normal circumstances, he would have postured and displayed dominance. Now, injured and lost, he whined softly and lowered his head in a submissive gesture. Rex stepped out into the storm, and Marcus followed. The old shepherd approached Titan carefully, nose to nose, the universal canine greeting. Titan stood still, allowing the inspection. Rex circled him once, assessing, then looked back at Marcus with those intelligent eyes. The message was clear. This dog needed help. "Come on, Titan. Let's get you inside." Marcus used his gentlest voice, the one reserved for frightened animals. He didn't try to grab the young dog, just turned and walked back to the blind. Trusting Titan to follow, the Malinois limped after him, following Rex's lead. Inside the blind, Titan collapsed in the corner, his sides heaving. Up close, Marcus could see the extent of his injuries. The left front leg was badly swollen, possibly broken. Scratches covered his face and flanks, and he favored his right rear leg as well. Marcus immediately radioed the situation. "Unit 7 to command. Titan has found his way to our location. He's injured, possible fracture to left front leg, multiple lacerations and contusions. He needs veterinary attention." Sarah's response was quick. "Copy that. We'll coordinate with the vet team. They'll extract him with your group. Is he stable?" Marcus examined Titan more closely, gentle hands probing for injuries. The dog winced, but didn't snap or pull away. "He's stable, but in pain. I don't have any supplies to treat him properly here." Medical team is 15 minutes out from your location. They'll have basic veterinary supplies. Hold tight. Marcus pulled out his own emergency blanket and carefully draped it over Titan. The young dog's eyes followed his every movement, filled with confusion and pain. This wasn't how Titan's day was supposed to go. He was supposed to be the hero, the strong young dog who saved the day. Instead, he was injured and dependent on others for rescue. Rex moved to lie down next to Titan, his gray muzzle resting near the younger dog's head. There was no competition now, no rivalry. Just one dog offering comfort to another. Titan shifted slightly, moving closer to Rex's warmth. David watched the interaction with fascination. I thought dogs didn't really help each other like that. I thought it was more survival of the fittest. Marcus smiled. Most people think that, but dogs, especially working dogs, understand teamwork in ways humans often don't. Knows Titan is hurt. He knows we're all waiting for help. So he's doing what he can to help. The wind howled harder, and the temperature continued to drop. Marcus checked his watch. The medical team should arrive soon, but 15 minutes could feel like an eternity in conditions like these. He adjusted the blankets around David and Sophie, making sure they stayed warm. Both were looking better now, their color improving and their shivering nearly stopped. How long have you had Rex? Sophie asked, her hand reaching out to touch the old dog's back. 9 years, Marcus replied. We were paired up when Rex was 2. He'd already been through basic training with another handler, but they weren't a good fit. Some handlers and dogs just don't click. But Rex and I understood each other from day one. Will you get a new dog when he retires? David asked. The question hit Marcus harder than he expected. He looked at Rex, at the gray in his muzzle, and the stiffness in his movement. Retirement was coming sooner rather than later. Eve. The sound of voices calling through the storm reached them before the medical team appeared. Marcus stood at the entrance of the blind, using his flashlight to signal their location. Within moments, 4 figures emerged from the darkness, carrying equipment and moving with practiced efficiency despite the brutal conditions. The team leader was a paramedic named Jennifer Walsh, a veteran of countless mountain rescues. Her eyes quickly assessed the situation: 2 hypothermic hikers, 1 injured police dog, and 1 aging canine that looked exhausted. She nodded to Marcus with professional respect before turning to her team. Anderson, start IVs on both hikers. Chen, I need vital signs. Rodriguez, check out that Malinois. Let's move, people. Ah! The blind became a flurry of controlled activity. David and Sophie were examined thoroughly, their temperatures taken, their extremities checked for frostbite. Anderson, a young EMT with steady hands, started warming IVs to help raise their core temperatures safely. Sophie protested weakly that she felt fine now, but Jennifer shut that down immediately. You're not fine. You're both borderline hypothermic, and we don't take chances with that. You'll be transported to the hospital for observation, and you won't argue about it. Who doubled as the team's veterinary technician. Knelt beside Titan. The big Malinois tried to growl as she approached, but the sound came out more like a whimper. Rex shifted position, placing himself between Rodriguez and Titan, not aggressively, but protectively. It's okay, Rex, Marcus said softly. She's here to help. The old shepherd seemed to understand. He moved aside, but stayed close, watching Rodriguez's every movement as she examined Titan. Her hands moved with gentle competence, feeling along the swollen leg, checking range of motion, palpating for breaks. Definite fracture, Rodriguez confirmed. Probably fell or got caught in something. Lucky he found his way here. Another hour in this storm, and hypothermia would have set in. I'll splint it for transport, but he needs surgery soon. As Rodriguez worked on stabilizing Titan's leg, Jennifer finished her assessment of the hikers. You 2 are going to be fine. Cold, scared, and you'll have some great stories to tell, but no permanent damage. You got incredibly lucky. Wasn't luck, David said, looking at Marcus and Rex. It was that dog. That old dog found us when nobody else could. Jennifer followed his gaze to where Rex lay, finally allowing himself to rest after hours of intense work. The paramedic smiled, a rare expression that softened her weathered features. I've been doing mountain rescue for 16 years. I've worked with a lot of canine units. The young dogs are impressive, all flash and speed. But the old ones? The ones who've been doing this for years? They're the ones who save lives when it really matters. The radio crackled with an update. Emma Patterson had been successfully extracted and was en route to the hospital. Her condition was stable, and doctors expected a full recovery. The news brought visible relief to David and Sophie, and David actually started crying openly, no longer trying to hide his emotions. "She's okay," he kept repeating. "Emma's okay." The extraction from the hunting blind took careful coordination. The medical team had brought a portable stretcher, and they insisted that both David and Sophie be carried out rather than walk. The terrain was too dangerous, and their weakened condition made them prone to falls. Neither hiker had the energy to argue. Marcus carried the team's extra equipment. While Rex walked beside him, the old dog's gait noticeably slower, now that the adrenaline of the search had worn off. Titan was carefully secured in a specialized animal carrier, sedated to keep him calm during transport. The entire group moved through the storm as a single unit. No one left behind. The hike back to the staging area took 45 minutes of grueling effort. The trail was slick with ice, and the wind seemed determined to knock them off their feet. But Jennifer's team knew what they were doing. They reached the waiting ambulances without incident. Captain Williams was there, along with Sarah Rodriguez and most of the other canine teams. When they saw Marcus and Rex emerge from the tree line, a spontaneous round of applause broke out. It was subdued, muted by exhaustion and cold, but genuine. Jake Morrison stood apart from the group, his face a mixture of shame and relief as he watched Titan being loaded into a veterinary transport vehicle. He approached Marcus hesitantly, struggling to find words. "I shouldn't have let him off leash," Jake finally said. "It was stupid and reckless. I thought he was ready, thought I had him under control. I was wrong." Marcus studied the younger officer, seeing his own mistakes from years past reflected in Jake's face. Every handler had a moment like this, a lesson learned the hard way. The question was whether they learned from it or let it break them. "Titan will heal," Marcus said simply, "and you'll be a better handler for this. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after." Jake glanced at Rex, who stood patiently beside Marcus, despite obvious exhaustion. "I owe you both an apology. All those things I said about Rex being too old, about veteran dogs being dead weight, I was completely wrong. Rex found all 3 hikers and then found Titan. He did more today than any of us." "He did his job," Marcus replied. "Same job he's been doing for 9 years. Experience counts for something in this line of work." Captain Williams approached, her expression unreadable. She dismissed Jake with a nod, then turned her full attention to Marcus. For a long moment, she simply looked at him and Rex, her eyes taking in every detail of their condition. "Hell of a day's work, Officer Chen. Thank you, Captain. The department is going to want to recognize this. Media will probably catch wind of it too. 3 hikers rescued by a senior K9 in the middle of a mountain storm. It's the kind of story people love." She paused, then added more quietly, "The kind of story that changes minds." Marcus understood what she wasn't saying directly. The department brass had been pushing for mandatory retirement ages for K9 officers. Rex was already past the usual retirement threshold, and there had been pressure on Marcus to transition to a younger dog. This rescue would buy them time, maybe even change the policy entirely. But as Marcus looked down at Rex, he saw the toll the day had taken. The old dog's legs trembled with fatigue. His breathing was labored. The gray around his muzzle seemed more pronounced in the harsh lights of the staging area. Rex had proven his worth today, but at what cost? "Let's get you checked out," Williams said, not unkindly. "Both of you need medical attention. We'll handle the paperwork and debriefing tomorrow." The veterinary team insisted on examining Rex immediately. They found signs of extreme exhaustion, some minor cuts on his paws, an aggravation of his arthritis from the intense physical activity. But overall, the old dog was in surprisingly good condition. His heart was strong, his lungs clear. The vet, a woman named Dr. Sarah Kim, who had been caring for Rex for years, shook her head in amazement. By all accounts, a dog his age should be napping on a couch somewhere. not running search patterns through mountain terrain in a storm. He's either the toughest dog I've ever seen or the most stubborn. Both, Marcus said with a tired smile. Dr. Kim prescribed rest and pain medication for Rex's joints. Along with strict orders for limited activity over the next week, Marcus listened carefully, nodding at each instruction, knowing full well that Rex would fight against the forced inactivity. Working dogs didn't understand retirement or rest days. They only understood purpose and duty. As the staging area began to clear, teams packing up equipment and heading back to the station, Marcus found himself alone with Rex in the back of his truck. The old dog had finally allowed himself to fully relax, curled up on his favorite blanket, his eyes half closed but still watchful. Marcus sat beside him, one hand resting on Rex's side, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breathing. The storm had passed, leaving behind a clear night sky filled with stars. The temperature had dropped even further, but inside the truck with the heater running, it was warm and safe. "You did good today, old friend," Marcus whispered. "You've saved 3 lives. Maybe 4, if you count Titan finding his way to us because of you." Rex's tail thumped weakly against the blanket, acknowledging the praise. His dark eyes opened fully, looking up at Marcus with an expression that seemed almost human in its depth and understanding. In that moment, Marcus felt the full weight of their partnership. 9 years of trust and loyalty and shared purpose. The drive back to the station was quiet. Marcus took the mountain road slowly, careful not to jostle Rex more than necessary. The radio played softly in the background, occasional traffic updates mixing with late-night music. It was after midnight now, technically a new day, but it felt like the search had lasted a lifetime. When they finally reached the station, most of the building was dark. Only the essential staff remained on duty, and the K9 unit wing was quiet. Marcus helped Rex out of the truck, supporting some of his weight as they walked to the kennel area. The old dog moved stiffly, each step clearly painful despite the medication. But when they reached Rex's kennel, the shepherd stopped and looked up at Marcus. There was something in his eyes, a question perhaps, or maybe just a desire for more time together after such an intense day. Marcus made a decision without really thinking about it. "Not tonight, boy. Tonight you're coming home with me." It was against protocol. K9 officers. Morning came too quickly. Marcus woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Linda moving around downstairs. His body protested as he sat up, muscles stiff from yesterday's mountain trek. He showered quickly, letting the hot water work out some of the soreness, then dressed in his uniform and headed downstairs. Rex was exactly where Marcus had left him, still sprawled on the leather couch. But the old dog was awake now, his eyes tracking Marcus's movement through the room. His tail wagged slowly, and he made a move to get up before Marcus stopped him with a gentle hand. "Easy, boy. Take your time." Linda appeared from the kitchen with 2 mugs of coffee and a bowl of scrambled eggs mixed with ground beef. Rex's favorite breakfast. She set the bowl on the floor near the couch, and Rex carefully lowered himself down to eat. "Moving like an old man getting out of bed? He's moving slower today," Linda observed, settling onto the couch beside Rex and stroking his head. "The vet said to expect that. He pushed himself hard yesterday. The medication should help, but he needs rest more than anything." Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message, then another, then a flood of them in rapid succession. He pulled out the device and scrolled through the notifications. News outlets requesting interviews, the mayor's office wanting to schedule a commendation ceremony, fellow officers sending congratulations, the department's public relations team asking for his availability for a press conference. "It's starting," Marcus muttered. By the time they reached the station, a news van was already parked outside. A reporter and cameraman stood near the entrance, clearly waiting for something. When they spotted Marcus's truck pulling in, they immediately moved toward the parking area. "Officer Chen, can we get a statement about yesterday's rescue?" Marcus held up a hand. "You'll need to go through the department's public relations office. I can't make any statements without clearance." But the reporter was persistent, walking alongside Marcus and Rex as they headed for the building entrance. "Is it true that Rex is 11 years old, and that he located all 3 hikers by himself?" Rex is a trained search and rescue K9. He did his job, just like every other member of the team yesterday. But sources say the younger dogs weren't able to pick up the trail. That Rex succeeded where they failed. Marcus stopped, turning to face the reporter with a stern expression. Every dog on that mountain yesterday contributed to the mission. Search and rescue is a team effort, not a competition. Now please, direct all media inquiries through proper channels. Inside the station, Captain Williams was waiting in her office. She gestured for Marcus to enter, and he secured Rex's leash to the chair outside before stepping in and closing the door. Media circus has begun, Williams said without preamble. The mayor wants a full ceremony. The chief wants you and Rex at a press conference this afternoon. And we've had 3 separate news magazines request feature stories. This is bigger than I anticipated. Marcus sank into the chair across from her desk. With respect, Captain Rex needs rest, not a media tour. He's sore and exhausted from yesterday. I understand that, and I agree. But there's more at stake here than just one search. Williams leaned forward, her expression serious. You know, the department has been discussing mandatory retirement ages for K9 officers. The proposal on the table right now would force Rex into retirement immediately. He's already 3 years past the recommended threshold. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. I thought we'd moved past that discussion. We had until yesterday. Now there are 2 camps forming. One side sees Rex's success as proof that experience matters and the policy is wrong. The other side sees it as Rex's last hurrah, evidence that we got lucky but shouldn't push our luck further. The next few weeks are going to determine which side wins. So Rex has to become a poster dog for senior K9 officers, whether he wants to or not. Williams nodded slowly. I'm afraid so. I know it's not fair to him or to you, but if we handle this right, we can change policy for every working dog in the department. Rex could save more than just those 3 hikers yesterday. He could save the careers of every veteran K9 that comes after him. Marcus sat in silence for a long moment, processing the implications. He thought about Rex sleeping on his couch last night, the old dog's body trembling with exhaustion, even in sleep. He thought about the stiffness in Rex's movement this morning, the visible effort it took to simply eat breakfast. And he thought about all the other aging K9 officers out there. Dogs who still had skills and dedication, but were being dismissed because of arbitrary age limits. What do you need from us? Marcus asked finally. The press conference this afternoon is non-negotiable. After that, we'll be selective about media appearances. Nothing that requires too much physical exertion for Rex. Just enough to keep the story alive and build public support. Williams softened slightly. And Marcus, I promise I won't let them turn this into a circus. Rex's welfare comes first. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of paperwork and briefings. Marcus wrote his official incident report detailing every moment of the search from departure to extraction. Other team members did the same, and Sarah Rodriguez compiled everything into a comprehensive after-action review. Around noon, Marcus took Rex outside for a walk around the station grounds. The old dog moved better now, the medication and rest having done their work. His gait was still stiff, the trembling had stopped, and some of his usual alertness had returned. They were crossing the parking lot when Jake Morrison approached, Titan limping alongside him. The young Malinois wore a cast on his left front leg and moved carefully. But his tail wagged when he saw Rex. The 2 dogs greeted each other. And Marcus noted with interest that the usual dominance display from Titan was completely absent. The young dog showed deference to Rex, acknowledging the older shepherd as the superior animal. Vet says 6 to 8 weeks for the fracture to heal, Jake said, watching the dogs interact. Then another month of physical therapy before he's cleared for active duty. I'm being reassigned to patrol in the meantime. It's rough. I'm sorry. Jake shrugged, trying to appear casual but not quite succeeding. It's fair. I screwed up, and there are consequences. But at least Titan's going to be okay. Thanks to Rex finding him when he did. How are you doing with it? Marcus asked, recognizing the signs of guilt and self-doubt in the younger officer's posture. Honestly, I'm embarrassed. Humiliated. Everyone knows I lost control of my dog during a critical search. Some of the guys have been decent about it, but others... Dot. Jake trailed off, shaking his head. I've been getting a lot of looks. Whispers in the break room. You know how it is? Marcus did know. Police culture could be brutal on officers who made mistakes, especially visible ones. The thin blue line protected its own, but it also maintained strict standards of competence and reliability. Jake had fallen short, and the department would remember that for a long time. You made a mistake, Marcus said carefully, but you also made the right call when it mattered. You could have kept searching for Titan in dangerous conditions, putting yourself at risk. You followed orders and returned to base. That shows discipline and maturity. Doesn't feel like it. It never does. But here's what I learned over the years. Every handler has a moment that humbles them. Mine came 7 years ago. Rex and I were searching for a missing child in an urban environment. I was so focused on the search that I didn't pay attention to our surroundings. Rex and I walked right past a group of gang members having a dispute. Shots were fired. Rex was hit in the shoulder. He survived, obviously, but it was close. And it was entirely my fault for not being situationally aware. Jake looked surprised. I've never heard about that. Because it happened, we learned from it, and we moved on. That's what you do. You take the lesson, you get better, and you don't let one mistake define your entire career. The press conference was held in the station's community room, hastily converted into a media center with chairs for reporters and a podium decorated with the department's logo. Captain Williams handled most of the speaking, giving a detailed account of the rescue operation while Marcus and Rex stood to the side. The cameras loved Rex. The old dog sat perfectly still, his posture alert and professional despite his age and fatigue. Flash photography popped constantly, and Marcus could see reporters taking notes. No doubt crafting their narratives about the senior canine hero who defied expectations. When it was Marcus's turn to speak, he kept his comments brief and focused on the team effort rather than individual accomplishment. But the reporters weren't interested in nuance. They wanted a simple story. Old dog proves doubters wrong, saves lives, becomes hero. Marcus could see it happening in real time. The transformation of a complex search operation into a feel-good tale for the evening news. Officer Chen. There have been discussions about mandatory retirement ages for canine officers. Does Rex's success yesterday prove those policies are wrong? Marcus paused, choosing his words carefully. Every dog is different. Some are ready to retire at 8 years old. Others, like Rex, can continue performing at a high level into their senior years. I think policies should be flexible enough to evaluate each animal individually rather than imposing arbitrary age limits. So you're saying Rex should be allowed to keep working? I'm saying Rex has earned the right to have his capabilities judged. The story exploded across local media that evening and went national by the next morning. Rex's photograph appeared on news websites, social media feeds, and television broadcasts. The narrative was exactly what Marcus had anticipated. Veteran canine proves age is just a number. Saves 3 lives in dramatic mountain rescue. The public ate it up. Support poured in from unexpected places. Veterinarians wrote opinion pieces about how modern medicine had extended working lives for dogs. Animal welfare advocates praised the department for allowing Rex to continue serving. Retired canine handlers from across the country sent messages of solidarity, sharing their own stories of senior dogs who had performed brilliantly late in their careers. But the backlash was equally vocal. Some veterinary professionals argued that working an 11-year-old dog in extreme conditions was borderline abusive. Regardless of the outcome, animal rights groups questioned whether Rex was being given a choice or being forced to work past his natural retirement. And within the department itself, maintaining their normal routine as much as possible. But the attention was unavoidable. People recognized them on the street now. Strangers would approach during their morning walks, asking to pet Rex or take photos with him. Some were genuine fans, but others felt entitled to offer unsolicited opinions about Rex's age and whether he should still be working. A week after the rescue, Marcus and Rex were called to a meeting with the police chief, Deputy Chief Patricia Morrison, and representatives from the department's policy committee. Captain Williams was also present. Sitting at the conference table with an unreadable expression, Chief Robert Anderson was a career officer approaching. Diamond himself. A man who had seen the department evolve over 3 decades. He regarded Marcus and Rex with measured consideration before speaking. Officer Chen, Rex's performance during the mountain rescue was exemplary. There's no question about that. However, this incident has forced us to confront some difficult questions about our canine program policies. Specifically, whether we should allow working dogs to continue active duty past certain age thresholds. Marcus remained silent, waiting for the chief to continue. The policy committee has been reviewing data from canine units across the country. We've examined injury rates, performance metrics, and career longevity for police dogs. The statistics are complicated. Yes, older dogs have more experience and training, but they also have higher injury rates and longer recovery times when injuries occur. Deputy Chief Morrison took over. We've also looked at the costs associated with maintaining senior canine officers. Veterinary expenses increase significantly as dogs age. Arthritis medication, regular checkups, specialized equipment. The department has to consider whether those resources might be better allocated to younger animals with longer potential careers ahead of them. Marcus felt anger rising but forced it down. With respect, Deputy Chief, Rex's veterinary costs last year were less than half what we spent on Titan's broken leg this past week. And Rex has never had a serious injury that required him to be pulled from duty for months. Experience prevents injuries because experienced dogs make smarter decisions in the field. That's a fair point, Chief Anderson acknowledged. But we can't make policy based on one exceptional case. Not every senior canine is going to be Rex. Some dogs do decline significantly with age. We need guidelines that work for the entire program, not just the outliers. Captain Williams spoke up. Chief, if I may, I think there's a middle ground here. Instead of mandatory retirement ages, we could implement more frequent evaluations for senior dogs. Physical assessments, performance reviews, cognitive testing. Let the data determine each dog's fitness for duty rather than arbitrary age cutoffs. The chief considered this, exchanging glances with Deputy Chief Morrison. That would require significant administrative overhead. More vet visits, more paperwork, more time spent on evaluations rather than active duty. True, Williams conceded. But it would also allow exceptional dogs like Rex to continue serving while ensuring that dogs, who genuinely need to retire, aren't being pushed beyond their limits. And it would give us concrete data to justify our decisions to the public and to animal welfare groups. The meeting continued for another hour, arguments flowing back and forth across the conference table. Marcus contributed when asked, but mostly remained quiet, letting Captain Williams advocate on his behalf. She was better at navigating departmental politics, better at finding compromise solutions that satisfied multiple interests. Finally, Chief Anderson stood, signaling the end of the discussion. The committee will review Captain Williams's proposal and make a recommendation within 2 weeks. In the meantime, Rex remains on active duty with no restrictions. Officer Chen, continue your regular schedule. It was a temporary reprieve, not a permanent solution. But Marcus would take it. As they left the building, Marcus found Jake Morrison waiting by his truck. The young officer looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot like a teenager about to ask someone to prom. I owe you an apology, Jake said without preamble. A real one, not just the half-assed thing I said before. I was wrong about Rex. I was wrong about experience versus youth, and I was wrong to question your judgment as a handler. Marcus studied him carefully. What changed? Titan's still recovering. The vet says he might never regain full mobility in that leg. Best case scenario, he'll be able to return to light duty. Worst case, he's done as a police dog at 3 years old. Ouch. Jake's voice cracked slightly. I've been thinking about what you said about how I screwed up by not being aware of my surroundings during the search. But it's more than that. I screwed up by thinking Titan's physical abilities were enough. I didn't respect the learning curve. Didn't understand that all the speed and strength in the world doesn't matter if you don't have judgment and experience. Rex sat patiently during this speech, and Jake reached down to pat his head. The old dog accepted the attention with his usual grace. Rex is 11, and he's still working at the highest level. Titan is 3, and his career might be over. That's taught me more about what really matters in this job than any training manual ever could. Marcus felt some of his anger and frustration fade. Jake was young and had been arrogant, but he was learning. That was all anyone could ask for. Titan's not done yet, Marcus said firmly. Even if he can't do field work anymore, there are other roles. Training demonstrations, community outreach, therapy work. A good dog always has value, regardless of age or physical limitations. You really believe that? I know it. When Rex finally does retire, he's not going to just disappear. We'll find ways for him to contribute that don't require him to scale mountains or chase suspects. The value of a canine officer isn't just in what they can physically do. It's in what they represent. Loyalty, dedication, partnership. Over the next week, Marcus noticed a shift in how other officers treated Rex. The dismissive looks and skeptical comments faded, replaced by genuine respect. Even officers who had never worked with canine units before would stop to acknowledge Rex in the hallways or during briefings. The old dog had become something more than just a working animal. He had become a symbol. Emma Patterson, David Knox, and Sophie Chen visited the station one afternoon, fully recovered from their ordeal. They brought gifts, a custom collar for Rex with his name embroidered in gold thread, a photo album documenting their rescue and recovery, and a heartfelt letter thanking the entire search team. Marcus watched as the 3 young people knelt beside Rex, their hands running through his gray fur, tears streaming down their faces. They understood in a way that policy committees and department administrators never could. Rex hadn't just saved their lives through some abstract combination of training and instinct. He had found them when they were lost and afraid and brought them home. That meant something profound, something that transcended debates about age limits and cost-benefit analyses. "How is he doing?" Emma asked, looking up at Marcus with concerned eyes. "Sore sometimes, moving a little slower, but good. Will he be allowed to keep working?" "We don't know yet. The department is still reviewing policies." Sophie shook her head in disbelief. "That's insane. He saved our lives. He's a hero. How could anyone even think about forcing him to retire?" Marcus smiled sadly. "It's complicated. The department has to think about liability, costs, long-term sustainability of the canine program. Rex is exceptional, but they can't make policy based solely on exceptional cases." "That's bureaucratic nonsense," David said bluntly. "Rex proved he can still do the job. That should be the only thing that matters. If only it were that simple," Marcus thought. But he appreciated their support, appreciated that someone outside the department understood what was at stake. The 2 weeks passed slowly. Marcus and Rex continued their regular duties, routine patrols, occasional searches for missing persons or suspects, training exercises with younger canine teams. Rex performed well in all of them, showing no signs of decline or inability to handle the work. But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that every call might be their last together. Every search could be the one where Rex's body finally said enough. Where age caught up with determination and something went wrong, the worry sat in his stomach. "The most important thing to understand," Marcus told her during a training session, "is that your dog isn't a tool or a piece of equipment. Your dog is your partner. You have to trust them completely, and they have to trust you the same way. That trust takes time to build, and it's tested every single day." Amanda watched as Rex worked a practice search pattern, his nose sweeping methodically across the training ground. Despite his age, despite the gray in his muzzle and the slight hitch in his gait, Rex moved with purpose and confidence. "How do you know when to trust his alerts?" Amanda asked. "What if he's wrong?" "Rex is almost never wrong. But even if he were, I'd still trust him. Because the moment I start second-guessing my dog, the moment I stop having faith in his abilities, our partnership is broken. A canine can sense when their handler doubts them, and it affects their performance. But what about when they get older? Don't you have to adjust your expectations?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "Age changes capabilities. Yes. Rex can't run as fast as he used to, He needs more rest between searches. But his core skills, his nose, his intelligence, his determination, those haven't diminished at all. So I adjust our approach to play to his strengths. I give him more time. I read his body language more carefully. I make sure he's getting proper care and recovery. But I never doubt him. Amanda nodded slowly, processing this information. The instructors at the academy talked a lot about mandatory retirement ages. They said most dogs should retire by 8 or 9, but Rex is 11 and still working at a high level. How did you convince the department to let him continue? I didn't convince them through arguments or paperwork. Rex convinced them through performance. He proved that he could still do the job, that age hadn't diminished his value. And yes, it took a dramatic rescue to really drive that point home. But the underlying truth was always there. Experience matters. Wisdom matters. The bond between handler and dog matters. One evening, about 6 months after the mountain rescue, Marcus and Rex were called to assist in a search for a missing elderly woman with dementia. She had wandered away from her care facility that morning and hadn't been seen for nearly 12 hours. The facility was located near a residential area with patches of woodland, and the woman could have gone in any direction. 3 canine teams were deployed, including Marcus and Rex. The area was divided into sectors, and each team took a different section. Marcus drew the wooded area east of the facility, a tangle of paths and undergrowth that would be difficult to search systematically. Rex immediately picked up a scent trail at the edge of the woods. His body language changed, becoming focused and intense. Marcus followed, trusting the old dog's nose as they pushed deeper into the trees. The trail wound through difficult terrain, crossing a creek and climbing a steep hillside. Marcus could hear Rex's breathing becoming labored. But the dog never slowed down. He was locked onto the scent, driven by the same determination that had carried him through hundreds of searches over his career. Marcus supported him when needed, helping him navigate particularly steep sections, but mostly just following and trusting. 30 minutes into the search, Rex brought them to a small clearing where a massive oak tree had fallen years ago. And there, curled up in the hollow beneath the trunk, was the missing woman. She was cold and confused, her clothing torn from pushing through underbrush. But she was alive. Marcus immediately radioed their location while approaching the woman slowly and calmly. "Ma'am, my name's Marcus. I'm a police officer. You're safe now. We're going to get you home." The woman looked at him with frightened, disoriented eyes. But when she saw Rex, something changed in her expression. The old dog approached her gently, and she reached out to touch his head. The fear in her eyes softened. "Good dog," she whispered. "Such a good dog." Rex sat beside her, providing comfort and warmth while they waited for the medical team. Marcus wrapped her in an emergency blanket and stayed close, monitoring her condition. She was hypothermic but stable. The medics arrived within 15 minutes. As they loaded the woman onto a stretcher, she kept looking back at Rex. "The dog found me. The gray dog found me when I was lost." This rescue didn't make headlines. There were no news cameras or press conferences. It was just another successful search in a long career of successful searches. But Marcus knew it was just as important as the mountain rescue that had made Rex famous. Maybe more important because it proved that Rex's performance during that dramatic rescue hadn't been a one-time miracle. It was simply who Rex was and what he did. Back at the station, Captain Williams was waiting. "I heard about the search. Nice work. That woman's family was terrified they'd lost her for good. Rex did all the work. I just followed." Williams smiled. "That's what you always say? But we both know it takes more than a good dog. It takes a handler who knows how to read them, how to support them, how to bring out their best." As the seasons changed and another year began, Rex passed his quarterly evaluations consistently. The veterinarian noted some progression in his arthritis and recommended adjustments to his medication, but overall declared him fit for duty. His performance reviews remained excellent. He was slower than the young dogs, certainly, but his success rate on searches was actually higher. Amanda Torres had been paired with her own dog now, an energetic 2-year-old German shepherd named Atlas. She still sought Marcus's advice regularly, and he enjoyed mentoring her. It reminded him of his own early days as a canine handler. When veteran officers had taken time to share their knowledge and experience, one afternoon, during a training exercise, Amanda watched as Rex worked through a complex search scenario. Atlas had completed the same scenario earlier, using his youth and speed to find the target quickly. Rex took longer, but his path was more methodical, more efficient. He didn't waste energy on false leads or distractions. "I get it now," Amanda said suddenly. "What you've been trying to teach me about experience versus raw ability? Atlas is faster and stronger, but Rex is smarter. He's seen everything before, so he doesn't get fooled by the obvious mistakes. He goes right to the solution." Exactly, Marcus confirmed. Young dogs are impressive to watch. They're exciting. But experienced dogs are reliable. When lives are on the line, reliability matters more than flash. As Marcus drove home that evening, Rex sleeping peacefully in his special seat. He thought about everything that had happened since that mountain rescue. The media attention, the policy changes, the mentoring of new handlers. Rex had become more than just a working dog. He had become a symbol of what dedication and experience could achieve. But Marcus also knew their time together was finite. Rex was 12 now, approaching 13. Each quarterly evaluation brought a small knot of anxiety. Each search made Marcus hyper-aware of Rex's breathing, his movement. Any sign that the old dog might finally be reaching his limits, yet Rex kept passing those evaluations. He kept finding people who were lost. He kept doing the job he loved with the same quiet determination that had defined his entire career. And Marcus kept supporting him, adjusting their approach as needed, but never doubting his partner's abilities. Linda commented one evening as they watched Rex sleep on his favorite spot on the couch. "He's going to work until the very end, isn't he? He's never going to just decide he's done." "Probably not," Marcus agreed. "Working dogs don't really understand retirement. They understand purpose. And as long as Rex has purpose, he'll keep going." "Are you okay with that? Knowing that he might never get a peaceful retirement, that he might work himself until his body simply can't anymore." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I used to worry about that. But I've come to understand something. Rex isn't working because I'm forcing him to, or because the department demands it. He's working because that's who he is. Searching for lost people, bringing them home, that's his purpose. That's what gives his life meaning. Taking that away from him would be crueler than letting him continue, even if it means he might get hurt. Even then, because Rex would rather risk everything doing what he loves than spend years safely bored and purposeless. I respect that. I respect him enough to let him make that choice." The conversation stayed with Marcus over the following weeks. He watched Rex more carefully, looking for signs that the old dog was struggling or in pain. But what he saw was a dog who still greeted each shift with enthusiasm, who still perked up at the sound of the radio calling for canine assistance, who still moved with purpose and confidence. Even if that movement was slower than before, Rex had taught the department that age didn't define capability. He had changed policies and influenced how an entire canine unit approached the concept of retirement. But more than that, he had reminded everyone what true loyalty looked like. Not the loyalty of unthinking obedience, but the loyalty of dedication and partnership and unwavering commitment to duty. On a crisp autumn morning, as Marcus and Rex began another shift, Marcus paused at the truck door and looked at his partner. The old dog gazed back at him, those brown eyes still bright and intelligent despite the gray fur surrounding them. "One more day, old friend," Marcus said softly. "Let's make it count." Rex's tail wagged, and he jumped into the truck with a little less spring than years past, but no less determination. They drove through the quiet morning,